If bloggers are the fifth estate, should they be subject to more regulation? Is there a need for an Unfair Contracts Act? These are topics and issues that affect you. But as with every story, there's always more than just one side. Are you prepared to listen to them all? I'm Florence Louis, and this is Point of View. After the 12th general election in March last year, analysts said the results showed that people were voting across racial lines, and some trumpeted this to be the start of the end of race-based political parties. The president of MCA, Datuk Sri Ong Tikiat, said in May last year, when he was the then vice president of MCA, that the party would need to be multiracial eventually or face the risk of extinction. Veteran UMNO leader Tunku Razaleigh Hamzah has proposed that only parties whose membership reflects the racial composition of the country be allowed to contest elections. He's even proposed that Barisan Nasional do away with membership by party and instead open its doors to direct membership by individuals so it can become a multiracial party. It's been more than half a century since this country gained independence from the British. Is it time to seriously consider the proposal of ending race-based political parties? Before I bring on my first guest, let's take a listen to what Malaysians have to say about race-based parties.
We are Malaysians, so Malaysians are made up of all the races, and people are getting married, cross-marriage and all that. So there is no more unique races like Chinese, Malays or Indians. We should all be Malaysians together. Yeah, I think that's the way it should go, and we should cut off this single race parties and all that. Yeah, it's about time to, like what the Sultan of Perak has said, work together.
I'm for the mixed race party because all of us are Malaysians. We have been here for many years, so we should multiracial party.
Definitely, of course, we would like a party that represents all of us, not representing each different races. What is the use? We are all Malaysians. Why do we segregate ourselves like that? I just don't understand. We should be all one and the same, and we should be speaking on behalf of every Malaysian. Instead, we're saying, oh, this one is for Malay, this one is for Chinese, this one Indian. I don't see the logic, okay?
Untuk satu-satu parti yang khususkan pada satu kaum tu, mungkin pandangan saya yang tu perlulah, kan? Sebab setiap kaum ni dia perlu ada satu parti yang sendirilah untuk mewakili atas kepentingan kaum itu sendirilah.
All races must have a representative to represent the race. That means they can do the thing for the race . Let's say for Chinese we have a leader to responsible for Chinese. So yeah, it will be better .
My first guest is Tunku Abdul Aziz Tunku Ibrahim, the DAP Vice Chairman. Tunku Aziz, welcome to Point of View.
Thank you.
Tunku Aziz, let's start with why you think race-based political parties will no longer exist in this country, or should no longer exist in this country.
Well, I think race-based political parties are really political dinosaurs, and they have no right to exist in a country such as ours, which is trying and has been trying for over 50 years to integrate the people of our nation. And if you have race-based politics, then they are an antithesis to national integration, national development. I think this is something that, if we are talking in the context of one Malaysia, then I think they have no place.
Okay, but how would the country transition from having been led by race-based parties almost through its entire modern history to just having multiracial parties? Would you support the proposal by Tunku Razaleigh Hamzah, whereby political parties ought to represent the composition of the nation, the racial composition of the nation, and he would make that compulsory. Would you support that sort of proposal?
Yeah, I certainly would support that. I would support any idea or plan or scheme that will have the effect of breaking down this race-based political system. In fact, I would go so far as to say that component parties of Barisan Nasional, they are all race-based. Why can't they just dissolve themselves and regroup under, under a new multiracial alliance, if you like, or grouping? The opposition are already multiracial, and again, there's no reason why we can't do the same, so that eventually we will have a two-party system in this country. After all, our politics are based on the British, parliamentary system.
Okay, so that sounds like Tunku Razale's proposal as well, where you open, maybe say, for example, you were talking about Barisan Nasional, you open the membership, instead of coalition parties, then you open the membership to individuals, so it becomes a multiracial party.
Right.
But in that sense, if we made it compulsory that each party, the composition of the party represents the racial composition of the nation, then even a party like DAP may have problems, because even though you are multiracial, a large number of your members come from one race. How would you convince members of other races who are not traditionally fond of DAP as a political party to join your party? I mean, how would you tell Malaysians to look beyond race when they've done it for almost all their lives?
I think in this case what we'll have to do, all the component parties that make up PR, Pakatan Rakyat, I think should disband and regroup. Make it possible for individuals to join Pakatan Rakyat, for example. Pakatan Rakyat, which is a single party rather than a composition of several parties. And if we could do the same on the other side, I think this would be really a good beginning. So you join a political party not because of its race-based policies, but because of the philosophy, if you like, because of the things that they believe in, that you believe in, and so I think there is a lot more accommodation. If something like this were to be done.
But do you think Malaysians are ready to look beyond identity and just look at issues?
Well, if you want my honest answer, they are not quite ready. But on the other hand, if we keep saying they are not ready and therefore we wait, then we are not going to get anywhere. I think, we will have to begin somewhere. We may not achieve dramatic results to begin with, but as long as people realize that this process is now on, that it is going to be what we will continue to do for the future good of the country and the nation. I think, this is how great movements have started. Small beginning, and in the end, we would have the desired results. But it will take time. It's not something that could happen overnight. But having said that, a One Malaysia or Malaysian Malaysia concept cannot just be put in place unless the right policies are in place. What do we mean by One Malaysia, for example? It's not just a slogan. One Malaysia will mean that policies to be right as far as opportunities are concerned, and all the race-based policies will have to go out of the window. And so there is a lot of work in the pipeline that has to be done to ensure that this concept, which is a great concept, and this is what Malaysia needs. Malaysia has been looking forward to achieving. All these things have to be done in a careful, systematic way, so that everyone feels comfortable with the idea of one Malaysia.
All right, Tunku Aziz, we'll take a break. Now we'll be right back after this. Okay. Welcome back to Point of View, where we're speaking to Tunku Abdul Aziz Tunku Ibrahim, the DAP Vice Chairman, who thinks it's time for race-based parties to go. Now, Tunku Aziz, you were speaking about the policies that the country would need to implement so that we can see beyond race. But at this point in time, you know, there are some people who still feel that there are certain issues that only a leader of their race can champion. What would you say to these people?
Well, I would say this, that we should be looking at causes to support, not causes which are solely to benefit a particular race, but we should from now on be looking at causes that will be good for the country as a whole. It means making sacrifices. It's about giving some and taking some, but on balance. If this is good for the country in overall terms, in terms of national integration, in terms of our being competitive in economic and social terms, then those are the policies we should support. And I could be supporting, for example, what today people regard as non-Malay causes, question of education.
Let's take Chinese education as an example.
Yes.
Because it's a matter quite close to the hearts of a lot of the Chinese people here. I mean, they see it as a right.
Yeah.
How will they, that it's difficult to ask them to entrust that to someone of a different race, simply because they feel that that person may not view the issue as strongly as they would.
Well, I think in this case, you don't need a political or a political leader or politician to advance the cause of Chinese education. Groups of Chinese educationists, citizens groups, could articulate the need for particular education sort of policy or policies that the Chinese see as being crucial to their cultural heritage and development. So I don't see this as a problem, but people will have to change their mindset. They have from now on to think not as Chinese or as Malays or Indians, but what really is good for the country. Because if our aim eventually is to have a united Malaysia, then we have to start dismantling this mental block that we all seem to have now, which I think is an impediment to national integration. We're not talking about assimilation, we're just talking about integration.
Right. I just want to bring up something that the MCA President Datuk Sri Ong Tiket has said. He believes that MCA will eventually need to go multiracial as well. But at the same time, he said, at the moment, the MCA Bureau helped us. They're already helping people of other races. I want to ask you whether you think it's so important for race-based parties to go, if these parties can actually look beyond race, when they champion issues, why can't they still keep the racial composition of their parties and keeping its membership strictly to one race? But as long as they understand that they're there to champion the causes for all Malaysians. Are those two
I think,
do they oppose each other?
They do. I think they do. And I think in political terms, there should be just two parties, both multiracial. The difference between the two essentially will be based on their political philosophies. Right? But we can maintain our Chineseness, Malayness, and Indianness, or whatever else, because as we know, Malaysia is made up of a tangle of different races and cultures. I think culturally it is important for us to maintain our cultural values and our cultural identity. And we can have associations which are cultural in nature. But in terms of politics, I think what divides this country today and the races today in Malaysia, the politics, you know, and if we can just tone this down to begin with, I think, you know, we make people realize that politics are important, but they're not the be-all and end-all of Malaysian life.
Okay, how do you see race-based parties going on then in this country? Do you think they'll die a natural death? Or do you think parties will eventually realize they have to be multiracial?
Yeah, I think they have to realize they have to be multiracial. All right, if they're not prepared to dismantle themselves straight away, they could, as you said earlier, the MCA could open its doors, make MCA, you know, more multiracial in character, and the same with MIC and the same with UMNO. But eventually, they will have really just to drop the race
card?
baggage, the race card should be thrown out, and they should all form a big party, a united party, yeah, based on political, their own political philosophy, their own political agenda, which has nothing to do with protecting the interests of one particular race.
All right. Tunku Aziz, thank you so much for being on
Thank
Point
you.
of View. We'll take a short break and we'll come back with our next guest. Welcome back to Point of View, where we're discussing race-based political parties. A recent online opinion poll said 90% of the 500 respondents voted for the abolition of race-based political parties, in the belief that this would result in greater social harmony and understanding among the races. 7% of the respondents disagreed with doing away with race-based parties, while 3% said they were unsure. The poll was conducted by Kuching-based Malaysia pollster. Now, my next guest thinks race-based parties will be around for the foreseeable future. But before I bring him on, let's find out how some Malaysians feel about race-based political parties.
Kita merdeka dah berapa tahun, dah lebih 50 tahun kan. So kita nak membentuk satu bangsa Malaysia. Jadi kalau bangsa Malaysia tu kalau let's say kalau ada satu parti tu hanya mewakili satu kaum, baik kata, jadi macam bangsa lain tu akan terpinggir lah. Kalau let's say kalau satu parti tu ada beberapa gabungan bangsa Cina ke India ke apa ke semua, jadi pembentukan ke arah bangsa Malaysia tu akan lebih mudah kita capai lah.
No, it should be in MCA and MIC per base, but there are better way to do it. Like, they are there to represent Chinese race, they are there to represent Indians. UMNO is to represent Malay. I think it's good to be there because they know what is their traditions. This is, beside representing the races itself, it's actually a way to preserve our traditions.
Parti-parti ini memang tak patut dibezakan dengan mana-mana kaum lah. So dia tak patut spesifik on satu-satu parti untuk Melayu ke India atau Chinese. Sebab kita living as a Malaysian, so tak patut ada macam spesifik on each kaum, tapi lebih baik kalau kita macam on, macam mana nak cakap ya, dia lebih kepada satu Malaysian tu sendirilah.
We as a Malaysian unite as one lah. Kalau kita nak beza-bezakan melalui race, warna kulit, that one is not so called as Malaysian. Sebab satu Malaysian, kita hidup berbilang kaum, therefore we should have satu parti politik yang menggabungkan semua kaum.
Pasal saya pun orang politik kan, jadi susah saya nak jawab lah kan. Tak boleh, saya pun saya orang UMNO kan, jadi saya jawab pun better lah pada satuan kaum tu. Jadi kita boleh depend kita punya kaum kan. Apa beza? Sekarang barisan ada bagus lah tu patutnya kan.
Tak patut lah. Sebab kita hidup berbilang kaum. So macam bila jadi macam perkauman ni sebenarnya akan sampai satu tahap Melayu sendiri yang rugi. Sebenarnya kalau bila Melayu jatuh nak bangun balik susah. Macam dulu. Patutnya macam bila apa yang ada sekarang kita kekalkan lah.
My next guest is the outspoken Datuk Tajudeen Abdul Rahman, the BNMP for Pasir Salak. Datuk Tajudeen, welcome to Point of View. Okay, let me start by asking you why you think race-based parties still have a future in this country.
It's because I think because this multiracial political party, they will have to cater for their members as well as their supporters and the electorate. And I don't think, for example, the Chinese, if they are the political leaders of the party, can appeal to the Malays. And the Malay leaders can appeal to the Chinese. In the sense that to talk about their problem, to be articulate about their, their problem, the issues that involve the community. So therefore, for the time being, I think culturally, language, psychological factor, it requires the leaders of that particular race to talk to them.
Okay, in particular, what sort of issues do you think are so entwined with race?
Well, not to say issues that entwined with the race, but community issues. For example, the Malays, they're talking about what they call economic issues, rural development, poverty, and of course religion, and also maybe royalty, the Sultan and the Rajat.
And these you see as Malay issues.
Malay issues, and if you talk about, for example, DAP, who claim to be a multiracial, membership, but they are in name only, but in form, in content, their policies and action, I don't see. You don't see them really, working or fighting or helping the Malay communities.
Okay, I mean, let's just take one of those examples where you talk about the eradication of poverty and rural development. I think, why do you say that a multiracial party can't champion this issue? Because, multiracial parties, parties like PKR and parties like DAP, they talk about eradicating poverty regardless of races. And if we see it beyond race, if we see it as an issue that affects all Malaysians, why do you think multiracial parties will not be able to champion this?
Well, first of all, I would like to make it very clear that UMNO, even it is race-based in the sense that membership are Malays, but of course, their main agenda is to help the Malays. That is the agenda of the party. Any party has got to, what they call this, be working for the agenda of the party. But at the same time, UMNO is not communal. It's not racist. UMNO is working for the a fair deal to every communities.
But when you champion issues for a particular race, can you not be said to be racist? Because if you champion issues for a particular race, by necessity, it means you have to leave some other races behind.
We have proven it. No, we are not talking in the what they call in the thin air. We are not just rhetoric. It's not rhetoric. is the past 50 over years. UMNO is the backbone of the BN. What did we have? What have we done? We have been so successful in what we call this to fight for the betterment, economic, education, social of every community. Our own party members, so-called the Malays, at the same time the others, Chinese, Indian, everybody.
So in that case, why
So
not
in that
open
case-
membership to all races? You know, like Tunku Razali's proposal.
No, I'm not aware
You-
of Tunku Razali proposal. I would like to come back to your statement about PKR and the AP. They claim only, they talk. Irrespective of race, we are, we are fighting, our struggle is for all Malaysian.
Well, they've only been in government for slightly
what did
over
they do?
a year.
A year, what did they do? Where's the plan? Even before action. You don't want to talk about action yet because it's only about a year or so. But where's the plan? They have not presented the plan. Okay, that is what they call the PKR. But what about the AP? The AP has been long in Malaysian politics. Where is the plan? By right,
I think critics of the government will also point to the fact that there's still been a huge disparity between the poor and the rich in this country.
So?
So there is still inefficient distribution of income.
Yeah, fine.
So
it is still inefficient. That's why we want to improve. But do you think the opposition can improve it better?
that's not the issue.
The issue is that
That's not the
whether
issue
we
here.
have been performing, we have delivered. The question is, have we failed the rakyat as a government, as a political party that rule the country? We have not. The only things that we want to improve further. You see the economic structure. You see the what do you call the taraf hidup. You call it what? Status of
Standard of living.
Huh?
Well, as I said, some people will point out to the fact that there's still a huge disparity
Mana
between
ada,
the
which
rich and the poor.
country
There's a
you
gap
tell
between
me?
the rich and the poor.
You
The
tell.
Gini coefficient in this country is still not where it should be. It's
Like
still
what?
higher than the rest of the countries in Southeast Asia.
The what? What is higher?
The Gini coefficient.
What do you mean by that?
That's the level of the disparity between the rich and the poor. There's still a huge disparity, compared with other countries in Southeast Asia.
We have been ruling for the last 50 years compared to America, compared to Australia, compared to other independent countries. You don't achieve, everything in such a, what I call, is overnight. You don't build Rome in one day. We are building a civilization in this country. We want everything to be so successful. It takes time.
Okay.
And we have been successful.
All right, I want to bring
so far.
the discussion back to race-based political parties.
Okay.
We've sort of meandered away from the topic of the day.
Okay.
Now, don't you think that what you're championing, each political race based, political parties based on race, right? How do you think this sits with the Prime Minister's concept of one Malaysia?
Yeah, one Malaysia, we want to integrate. It's national integration, national
Will this
unity.
stand in the way of national unity, you think?
Which one?
Race-based parties? Yeah.
No, we have been quite successful in national integration. Unity, we have no quarrel between
we haven't been
races.
successful.
No, we have no quarrel compared to other countries.
If we've been successful in racial integration, the government wouldn't have had to need to trot out the national service.
National service?
National Service Training Program. It was first proposed as a way to help national integration among youths because it was deemed to be a problem.
No. That is...
So my question is, if we continue having race-based political parties, will we one day find that we're even more polarized now than we are?
You think it's...
More polarized in the future than we are now?
You think, what do you call it, if it's not a race-based political party, then there will be no polarization?
Because
then there will be no...
people will need to start looking beyond race and, stop identifying with race, identifying themselves as Malaysians.
You be Chinese, you be forever Chinese.
I'm a Malay, I'm a Malay.
Will
Unless
there
I
come
change.
a time when we think of ourselves first as Malaysians,
Yeah,
rather
we
than
want
as
to-
Malay Malaysian or Chinese
We
Malaysian?
want to have a Bangsa Malaysia, but it takes time. The process of, integration, cultural integration. You think easy?
It's
you
not
want to talk about
cultural integration. You don't have to give up your
everything.
language, but you just stop identifying yourself with, stop identifying with causes that say, oh, this is a Chinese cause or this is a Malay cause. It should be a Malaysian cause. If it's for the good of the country, let's work towards that. Do you see race-based parties as being a stumbling block?
No, it's not a stumbling block because we have proven it in the past. We have been successful in the sense of being a champion for all races, even though we are UMNO. Our members are Malays. We have been
Okay.
champion.
I
I want
just
to
want-
ask you, what about DAP and what about
You can't ask me
which other
questions about
parties?
DAP. I'm not a member of DAP. Now, I want to ask you one last question. Tun Dr. Mahathir has said that race-based parties will be here to stay until such a time that we think of ourselves as Malaysians. So are you taking the view then that, you don't think that in the near future we'll be able to see ourselves as just Malaysians?
The
Is that-
time will come, but it will be long down the road until, the level of education, the level of economic achievement, we are already more or less, now the gap is being bridged between races. Not only economic gap, cultural gap, and also our worldview, our psychological makeup. It has to be changed. You think in the, what do you call this, for example, in Malay area, in my place, how do you expect, say, somebody to go there and look into their problem and being articulate to their issues, go to their house, go to the kampong, everywhere there. You think Lim Guan Eng can do that? Kit Siang can do that? Don't think so. Ask him to do that. No. In Penang, there's so many Malay kampung.
Why do you think
Likewise,
they can't? Why
in
do you
my
think
case,
they want? But why do you think they can't? They
my
speak
case.
the language. Why do you think they can't? Why do you
Yeah,
think?
not
let's
just about
widen it. Why do
language.
you think a non-Malay
Can he sit down in the
leader?
kitchen, Malay kitchen, dapur there, and be together, sit down with the women folk there, and then and join their prayers, join their what you call some other cultural activities, religious activities? No way. Let's be frank and honest about it. Don't pretend. Don't pretend. I cannot go to the temple and be together with all the what do you call this? All the preachers? Can I?
You don't have
I'm
to
a
be of the
Malay,
same
I'm a-
religion to understand the
Not to
problems
say-
that another race
No,
faces.
you have to be with them. You want to be a leader of the community, you have to be with them. Everywhere you have to be with them. That's why the Malays, I'm no leader, we become your champion of the other communities, but there are certain things we can do, there are certain things we cannot do. That you must understand. But it doesn't mean that we are against, or say not in favor, or against any community for that matter. As a Muslim, we have certain things that we can do, we cannot do. For example, eating. Halal food, we can eat. Not halal, we cannot eat. So, this is the reality of a multi-religious, multicultural, multiracial society.
All right, that's Tajudeen. That's all the time we have on Point of View. Thank you so much.
Thank
We're
you
going to
very
take a break and we'll be right back.
For coming back.
Welcome back to Point of View, where we're talking about race-based political parties and whether or not they should still have a place in our country. You've heard two different views from my guests. And to wrap up this episode, we have Reverend Jesse Jackson, a leading US civil rights campaigner who was in Kuala Lumpur earlier in the week as part of the International Peace Foundation's series of lectures titled Bridges Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace. We spoke to him and asked him how the US, a country which only 50 years ago still practiced segregation of the races, has managed to look beyond race and elect an African American as president. Reverend Jesse Jackson, you founded the Rainbow Coalition and also the People United to Save Humanity, and you later merged these two organizations. Now, what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, people united to serve humanity was to make available resources to those who had been denied resources. So many poor people who often work without insurance, who can't get education for their children, who can't not get their basic civil rights, who cannot get racial justice or gender equality, whose children cannot get a decent education. So people united to serve humanity. But when we ran for president in 1984, we had to build a bigger multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious coalition. So different races and different religions from different regions had to come together and find common ground. So whether you were a Native American, or whether you were Latino American, African American, white American, woman, Jewish American, Arab American, what did you have in common? How do you move from racial and ethnic battleground to economic common ground? What you had in common was a desire to get a livable wage for work. What you had in common was the need for comprehensive health care based upon need, not just based upon money. What you had in common was the desire for adequate houses for all people, and adequate education for all children, and to end unnecessary wars. And so we began to build a coalition around the idea of having a multiracial face on our politics. And the result is this year in the 08, 07, 08, 09 Barack Obama presidency, you saw people coming together across ancient lines, pulling down walls, building bridges. That is the work of the Rainbow Coalition.
You mentioned your race for presidency in 1984 and 1988. Did you sense at that time that maybe America wasn't ready for a black president?
Well, America was growing and maturing. Our running was a new American experience. They had never seen an African American before on the stage debating the great domestic and foreign policy issues of our time. They could not imagine African Americans leading beyond their own ethnic limitations. A part of the genius of leadership is that you may be a minority but have a majority view. It's because you're a woman doesn't mean you cannot relate to the legitimate concerns of men. Because you are a Malaysian, you cannot relate to the legitimate interests of an Indian, an Hindu, if it's under the same flag, on the same roof. So we had to go from 54 to 04. It was 50 years of tearing down walls, legal walls, cultural walls, racial, regional walls. But when walls come down, you can build bridges. But it's dangerous to tear down walls because people gain power behind those walls. They want to keep them up to lock themselves in and lock others out. And so when Dr. King tried to tear down walls, his home was bombed. He was stabbed. He was killed. When others marched for the right to vote to tear down those walls, young civil rights workers were killed. 2 Jews and the blacks running up in Cheney. An Italian-American mother of Vala Luizzo was called nigger lover. She was killed. Jimmy Lee Jackson, young African-American, was killed because tearing down walls meant tearing down these cubicles or zones of fear. But now that the walls are down, now that you can vote without intimidation, without fear, without inhibitions, then you have a new populace. Like, behold, we see something new. Behold how beautiful we are. In these last 50 years, because the legal walls have come down, behavior is changing, attitudes are changing, and results are changing. More African Americans and Latinos and whites and women and men now go to school together, use public facilities together, and work in the common place, and live in the same neighborhood, and play on the same athletic team. So now when Team A plays Team B, you're choosing uniform color, not skin color. You're learning to live together. As I often say, we have learned to survive apart in our own cubicle. We must now learn to live together. That means learning, sharing each other's languages and holidays and cultures. And that is the new America, the growing, more mature America that people saw in function this past campaign.
At that time when you were running for president in 84 and 88, did you think that you would see a black president in your lifetime?
Well, I did. I didn't know when. I didn't know who. For example, in 84, in Iowa, with a very small budget, we were able to get nearly double digits. And that was like a big breakthrough without advertising. By 88, we won Vermont, virtually all white state. We won Michigan. We scored heavy in Hawaii. We won places they thought that we could not win. We won. It takes 2,200 delegates to become the nominee. We got 1,250 delegates with only $17 million. This year, President Barack Hussein Obama had nearly $700 million. So if we had $50 million, for example, we could have scored perhaps a big upset in 1988. But we saw America maturing and growing. You know, the seed is planted, and it keeps growing till it gets to a point of maturity. And I remember watching the campaign one night in New Hampshire, a state that's basically white people. But that night I saw Richardson, a Latino American. I saw Hillary Clinton, a white female, and Barack Obama, all debating the great issues of our time. And for that moment in time, you could see people choosing ideas over identity as the basis for making a vote. And then they went to Mississippi, a state that's characterized historically by a lot of terror and violence and hurt, where Emmett Till was lynched, a young African-American male, 14 years old, accused of whistling at a white woman, where Medgar Evers was shot and killed. In that state, you had a governor declaring that there'll be a free, fair election, and it happened. You saw whites going to Jackson State voting for President Barack Hussein Obama. You saw men who were basically anti-feminists voting for Hillary Clinton. So clearly at that time, Barack and Hillary had become the conduits to which a new, more mature America was being born. You saw kind of a transformation, redemptive process taking place.
Barack Obama's presidency is possible only because he stood on the shoulders of giants such as yourself and Martin Luther King. I wonder, do you ever wish that you could have been born maybe, say, several decades later? And perhaps
no, I thank God for my space and place and time. I was jailed July 16, 1960, trying to use the public library. You only have the time to live and contribute when birth is yours, in front of you is your life. As I often say, you go to a cemetery and you see a birth date which you did not determine, a death date so often you do not determine. But in between is a dash. You live on that dash, which is your time to make your contribution. We've worked diligently on my space to pull down bridges, to create for my children opportunities, for my children's generation opportunities. I remember Barack Obama being in my office with my son and my son-in-law, why we should support him. I remember him being on the stage of our organization, getting his name known. I remember him walking the streets as a state senator, and to watch him grow. But an African-American governor of Massachusetts who grew up in a housing project in Chicago, a governor of New York who is legally blind, an African-American, a woman speaker of the House, a Muslim congressman from Minnesota, an African-American. So one sees this growth process taking place, and it bodes well for our future. Even though there's unfinished business, we have more tools with which to create a more perfect nation, and therefore make a better and a greater contribution.
Thank you very much, Reverend Jackson. Thank you very much for your time. That was the Reverend Jesse Jackson wrapping up this episode of Point of View. Next week, we'll be talking about press freedom. So if you have any questions you'd like us to ask our guests, email us at pointofview@ntv7.com.my. And also, if you have any comments on this episode, or if there are any topics you'd like us to talk about on this show, you can also write to us at the same address or visit our blog, ntv7pointofview.blogspot.com. I'm Florence Lee, and I'll see you next week.